So welcome to my video on the UV light test. As usual, I got a little carried away, but I was trying to determine basically every angle that this could be looked at, where you're using UV light to try to determine the authenticity of a Magic the Gathering card. So just as an introduction, UV light is beyond the visible spectrum. You can't actually see it, but it goes ultraviolet. It goes beyond the blue spectrum of light. So usually when you're having something emit UV light, it's also concurrently emitting blue light because it's towards that spectrum. So what you're actually looking at isn't the UV light itself. What you're looking at is the fluorescence of the white pigment under that UV light, and because it's so dark surrounding it, it really makes it pop. Whereas basically an incandescent light's going to emit some UV, the area is already saturated with other wavelengths of light, so you don't notice that fluorescence so much. So you're going to need a black light, or you're going to need some kind of handheld black light. This is a micro photon, or you're going to need, the big guy here. This is a larger scale UV light. And if you're going to go with the heavier duty UV light, you want to have some UV protection for your eyes. These goggles here are kind of yellow, and it's kind of neat when you put them on. The UV light makes it look white. These ones are polycarbonate. Polycarbonate blocks most UV light. I was noticing when I was doing a lot of work with the main UV flashlight over there that I was getting a lot of eye fatigue. So even though you don't see UV light, it can still cause damage to the eyes. If you're going to use, a small source of UV light, a black light or this little keychain guy, it's not so much of an issue. But for prolonged exposure to UV light, like with that flashlight, I would definitely recommend some sort of eye protection. So the gist of this test is to take your cards that you think are real or fake and then expose them to the UV light and see if they fluoresce. And the key to this test is to have additional cards nearby to act as references to see if this card does in fact look different. So I'm going to dive a lot deeper into this, but just as an introduction for someone that wants to watch a few seconds of video and get done with it, you want to have a darker area. So you want to turn off the light, and then the camera's adjusting. And then you want to take a source of UV light, we'll put that in quotations, but it's just blue when you're seeing it, and you want to shine it on them. So that one looks super bright, that one looks super bright, that one looks slightly different. This actually, over here on the right, is an alternate 4th edition card, and they are known to not reflect UV light. They actually have a UV coating on them that absorbs the UV to prolong the life of the card. This is an authentic, was that 6th edition card, but this Arid Mesa in the middle is counterfeit. So I'm going to go a lot more into this, but I just wanted to give this opening thing. The key to all this is to have a lot of samples at hand so you can test to see if something looks different, and there's a lot of subjectivity to this test, unfortunately. So here I have what would be usually the meat and the potatoes of the UV light test. So I have a proxy and a authentic gamble over here, and then I have my proxy time twister authentic stasis from Unlimited, and then I've got this Arid Mesa over here. And really this line here is actually light coming in from outside. The camera picks up UV better than the human eye, so these look slightly different by camera, but from when I look at them. When I look at them, this one appears slightly darker, and this is the counterfeit one, but it's not as prominent as it looks in this this picture, because the camera is picking up more of the UV that's reflecting off of this surface than I can see. So this one here, this time twister and this stasis, the time twister might be ever so slightly darker, but it doesn't really look that different. The Arid Mesa, nothing really sets off a flag to say that one's counterfeit. Basically, there's so many different printings of counterfeit cards, and they've been coming out for so long. I think at one time this test was a little bit better than it's running here, but there's definitely a lot of subjective nature to this. What I had pictured in my mind before I ever got a false result on this test was that it would look something like this one right here, this alternate 4th edition card, and you just see it and know that card is fake. And that might happen sometimes, but what I'm seeing with my known counterfeit cards, these ones and my other ones, is that none of them have this super kind of fail aspect to them. I mean, this authentic one's a little bit brighter than the counterfeit one, but like I said, if you're looking at these yourself, not through the camera, there isn't a lot of difference. There's some difference, but I don't know if I'd flag that on its own. So I'm going to flip all these over to the back so we can get a look at the back of them too. So the cards are still in their same positions. And the funny thing about these is that this is the authentic gamble. But if you're looking at it, it looks different than the other cards, at least to my eye, without the camera. And as I'd mentioned before when I was going through the bulk sets, the Urza's block does look a little bit different on the front than the other cards, and it also looks a little bit different on the back. So the counterfeit card here does match pretty well with this authentic Stasis from Unlimited. They look like they're from the same thing. But if I bring down the gamble and move it out of there, it looks slightly different. I mean, this is all pretty subjective, except for, you know, the alternate 4th edition. Those just look completely different underneath these lighting conditions. But again, there's going to be different counterfeit printings of these cards, and some of them are definitely going to fail this test. So the key is always to have a representative sample, a representative card to compare it to, a known good card. So if you increase the brightness on these of UV light, you know, that might be useful. That Stasis has a little bit of kind of a whitish cast to it. That counterfeit one here, you know, not so much. But you know, this test, let's put even more intensity UV on it. I mean, really light them up. Yeah, that counterfeit time twister might look a little bit different now. But, you know, it's something where you'd look at it and be like, well, you know, does that fail? And it's hard to say. It's very subjective. But if you get something that looks like this alternate 4th edition and it is not 4th edition, then that's probably a fake. One of the annoying things about this test is that you do need somewhat of a dark room. So if you're out at a GP somewhere, it's going to be difficult for you to use this test for authentication purposes. So this is the alternate 4th card over here. This is an authentic card. This one's from Unlimited. And the alternate 4th looks completely different if it's all just blacklit. But if you just shine the blacklight on it, you don't see a lot of difference. So you do need a darker room in order to tell these cards from anything else. And you definitely have to have a consistent light source. So for something like this little UV keychain light, you know, that's pretty consistent. It's easy to carry. You know, it works good for some things. If you're going to use that, don't really worry about the eye protection. But if you're going to go out and you're actually going to buy one like this, I have this in the description, you're going to wear eye protection for it. I was definitely getting a lot of eye fatigue when I was going through all this, and I was trying to figure out, well, does this one look different? Does this one look different? You know, I was pulling out boxes and going through every card, and I'm trying to find everything that I could. Definitely wear eye protection if you're going to be sitting there staring at UV light for a long period of time. So this is the test area that I've been using for various things, and what is several of the Magic sets arranged in semi-chronological order, with the card forward facing on the front, reverse facing underneath it from that same set. These two are definitely out of order. But I've been using this kind of as a test to see, you know, in terms of large-scale trends, how does something apply to all of the sets of Magic, at least through what I collected. And mostly I stopped collecting just after Urza's Saga, so I've got some more recent stuff, but not a lot. So I went through quite a few cards, and originally I had this all set up with basically a column of 4 cards from top to bottom from each set. That way I could get a better cross-section. I had 2 up-facing, 2 down-facing. So I use this for the original UV tests, and this is kind of an abridged version of that. So I'm going to go over what I saw with the larger scale version. I just got to change over the light bulb to a blacklight. So we're under blacklight now, and a lot of the cards look pretty much identical. An oddball is going to be this guy, alternate 4th edition. Alternate 4th editions actually look really cool under blacklight. Some of them have this real 3D look to them. I've been kind of picking up on those, specifically because I've been doing all this stuff with UV light and I've seen how cool they look. Surprised they're still available at the prices they are. But really with a blacklight, that's about all you get. The alternate 4th look a little bit different. You know, if you got a real focused source of blacklight, you might notice some other differences. That guy there looks a little bit different, but for the most part, you can see the circle lights up on the back. Magic should light up. Cards with white borders definitely pop out versus other cards. But what I did find is that if you use a more focused source of blacklight, Urza Saga cards have a slightly different look to them. They just don't appear as shiny on the back. And Urza's Legacy, basically that whole Urza block, they look a little bit different on the back. And Mirage also has a little bit of a different look to it. So I'm going to try to capture that with camera. It hasn't worked so far. But basically I'm going to use just a little handheld UV light. I think with the larger UV light I was actually oversaturating it. So let's find the Urza blocks, which are down here. So you can kind of see it here. On this one it looks kind of whitish. That one definitely retains its browner color. And that is definitely getting into the Urza block. Same with that one. And where's the remaining Urza cards? Sometimes it's hard to see stuff in blacklight for some reason. I'm actually wearing protective glasses right now because I think I've burned out my eye sockets. Anyway, the Urza block does look a little bit different under blacklight on the back side. And Mirage block also looks a little bit different. You can kind of see it right there. You know, you see the Mirage looks brown still, whereas the others look kind of white. But other than that, it's remained remarkably uniform, except for, I think this is Modern Masters 2015. It kind of, they look a little janky. One of them. It's not showing up. Anyway, very, very uniform considering how long that these have been being printed for. So this is what I was talking about with the Modern Masters 2015. You can see here the border. Basically the whole card looks like garbage when you shine a black light on it versus the other sets, and it's hard to capture this on camera. It washes out so easily. You know, it's so bad actually when you look at it in real life that, you know, I had to run other tests to make sure I hadn't bought a box of counterfeits. But no, they don't look good at all. The border should be a non-reflective black color, and you can see that in the card to the left, that it almost looks like there's no border on it, like it bleeds straight to black into the table. But on the card to the right, that Modern Masters 2015, you can definitely see the border. You know, that's a difference between looking at these two like this, but in real life that border looks brown instead of black. Same with up here with the actual card itself, the border around it looks brown instead of black. So, you know, I don't know if that was a bad printing or something like that, but that was something that I did notice when I was going through all this stuff. So in this section of the video I'm hanging out in my basement, and the reason for that is because it's dark down here. And one of the things that I had done when I was looking at infrared light and how it can be used with counterfeit cards was to look at how much infrared light could pass through a card, and for that I had an infrared camera where I could look at that pretty easily. UV cameras though they're a little bit out of my range. So in this case, I'm using a proxy for that. Play on words. What it is this painting, something my girlfriend painted for me back in high school, has a lot of glow-in-the-dark paint on it. So you hit it with light, you turn off the lights, the paint's excited, it glows for a while, and then it goes black. And if you use a UV light on that, it lights up really quick, really bright, before, you know, it slowly fades just like any other time. So if I take a UV flashlight and I use that to shine light through one of these, what I found is that with counterfeit cards, with all the counterfeits I had, hardly any UV light, if any, that I can see actually reaches the painting itself. Whereas with the regular cards, enough reaches the painting to give a definite visual representation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this light and I'm going to set it on here, basically just over the text box, turn it on for 10 seconds, turn off the light, move the card, and what you'll see with the authentic card, which is on the right, is that there will be little spots where you can actually see where the individual LEDs are. And on the other counterfeit card on the left, you'll see there's nothing there. And 10 seconds is really just above and beyond what you really need. You can tell a difference at 3 or 4 seconds. You can see light on the authentic card. And you can run this for 30, 40 seconds and you still won't see light on the counterfeit card. So with that, I'm going to set this light right there in place, and I'm going to turn this light off. And you can see there's the glow of the painting itself. And we're going to turn this light on. One Mississippi. And that's been about 10 seconds. Turn it off, move it, and you can see the outline of where the light was. Now if I take that same one and I go over the counterfeit card, and the light is now on, seconds, and then move that card, there is nothing there. Meanwhile, you can still see the dots for where the card was over the authentic card. And I've tried this with several different cards. One card that I hadn't tried it with, I have an alternate 4th edition version of Uthin Troll here. And that's interesting because in the alternate 4th edition, the cards have an anti-UV reflective coating on them. So they should, by nature, reflect more of the UV than a normal card. So I'm going to compare that to another counterfeit card. This is counterfeit Arid Mesa. And I'm going to compare these two cards and see if I can still tell a difference between these, even though, you know, alternate 4th, it's kind of an oddball card to begin with. So let's turn the lights off. And I'm going to pick up this Arid Mesa real quick and see if I can still see. No, I can't see where the dots were. I'll move the troll, and there's no dots there. Grab the flashlight, put it in place. Starting out with the Mesa. And nothing. Meanwhile, let's go over here to the alternate 4th edition. I haven't done this before, I'm just kind of curious. And there are dots, so the alternate 4th edition also does transmit UV light. So even something oddball like that. Let's just do one more set of authentic and counterfeit cards. Let's take one and put it on here, put another on here, and then turn out the lights. And then let's make sure that there's no dots already in place. It looks like the light kind of resets the dots. I had forgotten about that. And we'll go with this card. And there's a nice set of dots from that one. So the stasis is real. And come over here and go to this time twister. And no dots, so the time twister is fake, which I knew, but you didn't. And just to give you an indication of what this UV light does do to this this painting, turn it on, and you can definitely see how quickly it just lights up that whole painting. So there's a high intensity UV light coming from this, and the counterfeit cards just block that UV, but the Wizards of the Coast cards don't, which is pretty interesting. Just like an oddball thing that it does that. So that's kind of the test for permeation of UV, we'll say light, but really it's kind of a radiation if you can't see it. Also, yeah, I know the shots in the basement were interesting, you know, trying to use that painting to determine UV light, but the actual UV light source also works directly. Fake, authentic. And actually the interesting thing is, like I said that before, the camera picks up UV a lot better, so you can't see anything when you're doing this normally, but I can see just hints of blue on the camera. And over here, that's nowhere near as bright without the camera. So definite, quick, and easy test would be to use this light in the field and just bypass trying to use a glow-in-the-dark painting entirely, no matter how interesting that means of doing this is. This last part kind of mirrors what I saw with the IR camera. What I did is I made a pseudo UV camera by using a abrasive material to take the UV coating off of the lens and then taking the UV filter out of the camera. And what I saw was, like I said, basically the same thing I saw with the IR camera. The black dot in the lower right hand corner of the magic symbol turned out to be black on the proxy versions, but it ended up like a bluish color on the authentic versions. So that may be because the filtering of the blacklight was also letting IR through. So I might just be seeing exactly the same thing that I was seeing with the IR camera, but it's definitely worth pursuing. There's definitely a big difference here between the proxies with the black dot in the lower right hand and then the authentic cards that have that bluish kind of dot in the right hand corner. So really the summary of all this is that UV reflectance is best observed in a dark environment. The differences might be subtle, so you should have a lot of compares around, hopefully from the same set. Look at the front and the back. Differences are most prominent in white areas. They can be dingy. The test is subjective. Transmitted UV light can be used as a test when I put the flashlight behind it, or I tried to do it on the painting. The camera can be used to accentuate the differences between one card and another card, because it picks up the UV light better than your eye can. And the UV camera itself, like if we had a camera that was used for capturing UV, could be useful, but it's somewhat impractical because a good UV camera is quite expensive, several $100s, and I don't know if the testing that I did actually gives results that are interchangeable with a real UV camera, or if I'm just catching the stray IR. Overall, this test can be good for a quick comparison between several cards, and I know that some cards do fail this test spectacularly, but the proxies and counterfeit versions that I had of cards, the differences were pretty subtle, so I wouldn't rely on it for those specific cards.